sure about the driver though.
As sports car racing heralds an exciting new era of hypercars and LMDh prototypes, we sadly wave goodbye to LMP1, a category responsible for some of the most otherworldly racing cars ever conceived. But thanks to a thriving post-historic racing series, these cars needn't be consigned to museums just yet. Masters Endurance Legends caters for Le Mans style machinery from 1995 through until 2016, which gives amateur racers an unbelievable opportunity to experience cars that so recently represented the absolute pinnacle of sports car racing technology. Now, to contend for outright wins, you will of course need to be in the top class. And while there are some former factory team thoroughbreds on the grid that should by rights be hard to beat, there are a few alternative cars that were used in period by plucky privateers to keep the big boys honest, just as they continue to do in Masters racing today.
And this is one of those cars. It's a 2012 Lola B1260, campaigned by the American Dyson racing team in the American Le Mans series. Let's take a closer look. At its heart, you've got this little jewel of an engine. It's a Mazda 2-litre turbo, but it's built by racing specialist AER. It puts out about 530 brake horsepower, and the whole car weighs a shade under 900 kilograms. It's a full carbon monocoque. We've got massive carbon brake discs, a flappy paddle gearbox, and as you can see from the shape of the bodywork, oodles of downforce. While we've got the bodywork off, it's a great opportunity just to show you inside. Now, the reason that engine is so special is because it's tiny, compact size and low weight. It's buried ever so low in the car, bringing the center of gravity down and giving the car a fantastic handling balance. Now, this cockpit environment is one that's pretty familiar to me because it's actually very similar, in fact, pretty much the same tub that I drove when I was racing for Aston Martin in 2010 in their Lola-based LMP1 car. And that's great news for a tall driver like me. I'm 6'2", but there's plenty of legroom and just enough head height as well. Now, although it all looks quite complex and complicated compared to most of the cars you see being readied in a typical historic racing paddock, it's actually pretty straightforward. Lola is a customer-orientated manufacturer, and these cars were driven by pros, but also had to be drivable by the amateur racers, the gentleman drivers that so often formed a part of the lineup. You can see right now the car's being preheated with its intravenous drip. The tyres are over there in their nice warming blankets, which I'm very grateful for, considering it's a chilly morning here at Donington. But other than that, it's all pretty straightforward.
races by Le Mans winning Bentley boy Guy Smith and multiple sports car champions Chris Dyson and Johnny Mowlem, and they all raved about the handling. I'm starting to understand why. Perhaps it's the extra wide front tyres that unusually match the width of the rears, or even that tiny gem of an engine helping to lower the centre of gravity. Either way, it feels totally bolted to the road in both fast and slow corners.
Assisted, of course, in part by the traction control, but I've got to be honest, I'm not really feeling it. It's very subtle. Oh, I've forgotten what an experience these cars really are. God, I miss these cars. Wow. It takes your breath away. And not because it's particularly physical to drive, certainly not with a few laps like that, and I know I'm not very fit at the moment, but the reason I'm panting and trying to catch my breath is because it's just such a shock to the system, but in the most fantastic way. The main thing is recalibrating your brain just to synchronize the rate at which the scenery just unfolds through the windscreen in front of you. It is an astonishingly quick car, especially when you're accustomed to the comparatively more humble cars that you might find in a typical historic racing paddock. But it's not difficult to drive, and actually I found that when I just calmed down, softened my inputs, particularly on the steering, the car rewarded me in spades by being much smoother, much easier to drive. Much more aero because I was keeping the platform of the car flatter and more stable, so I felt instantly more grip, more assistance from the aerodynamics. And also the steering was less responsive and the car became much less darty. Oh, it's just magic. I mean, what a thing. It's so interesting that a car capable of so much doesn't actually require that much from the driver. You've certainly got to be brave to exploit the very late braking capacity of the car, but that just comes with time. The gear shift is effortless. You just breathe on the paddle and you're into the next gear before you know it. On the downshift, every time you pull the left-hand pedal behind the wheel, it automatically blips the engine to match the revs with the wheel speed. You don't touch the clutch after you've pulled out of the pits until you come back into the pit garage and stop. You've got assistance from the power steering, you've got assistance from traction control. There isn't ABS, but actually I much prefer that because it retains feel through the brake pedal. It's just quick. It's just really, really quick. And learning to trust the aerodynamics is something that would take somebody new to this kind of car, certainly a couple of days of testing. But there's no magic formula. This isn't some kind of hidden, tricky technique that's required. It just works.